Hello, everyone. This is Denise Wilbanks, and I'm joined once more by Carla Rueckert, the channel for the Law of One raw material, and also author of the Law of One. Carla, help me out in the title of your book, because it's also replicating the Law of
Living
One.
the Law
the
of
Law
One.
of One.
101.
Thank you. Got tongue-tied there for a minute. And so, thank you, Carla, for joining me from your home. And tell us a little bit about what's been happening in your life since last time. How are you feeling?
Okay, well, my progress is slow, but it's very clear. The wound that the doctors left that would not heal for so long is beginning to close now. And I'm so happy to announce that it's really happening. I'm really going to be able to have one whole body soon. And I can't wait to take my first bath.
Now, I've been seeing on the website that you're also starting to walk a little bit.
Yes, I I'm kind of my worst enemy there in that I'm so enthusiastic. Like for instance, at Christmas time, I sat up too much for too long, and I got so much arthritis that my body just froze up, and there I was back to zero and not walking at all. So now I've started walking again. I'm up to one whole lap a day.
Woohoo!
Yeah. Jim walks backwards and I walk forwards talking to him, and
That's like dancing.
we have our own little dance.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And we try to do it the same every day, and so far so good, knock wood.
Yay, that's good to hear.
It's all good news.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Carla, we have had such a success with the last recording. I don't know if you've, visit the YouTube, but we're up to upwards of 1,000 views, which to me that's great.
Yeah.
And I thought it was such a wonderful interview that we take advantage and see if we could follow up on some of the concepts. And one of
Okay.
the concepts that I ran into and has really kind of gone, bing, 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 bing with bells on, because I think
This is it.
this is it. I think this is sort of the core, in my opinion, and obviously everyone sees the Law of One through their own perspective and view, but in my opinion, this is really where it's at. And with your permission, I'd like to read I'm going to skip the question that Dawn asked, because I think the answer from Ra was just so complete in and of itself. And so it says, I am Ra. We grasp from your questions that you realize that the primary mechanism for catalyst or catalytic experience in third density is other self. The list of other catalytic influences: firstly, the Creator's universe; secondly, the other self; and third, the self. And I think I've read that correctly. And for those who might want to pinpoint it, it's located on page 49 of book 2. And so what I take away from that is, and obviously I want your opinion, but why it was so invigorating to find it was because it reminded me of some of my own experiences when you come in contact with other people who, voila, all of a sudden you weren't expecting to have a reaction to something, and you reacted to life or to someone's anger or to someone's joy and whatnot, and obviously it created some sort of a wall where you bump up against and you say, okay, here it is. This is my opportunity to make a choice, to be of service, to cave in, to open up my heart, and so forth. So just wanted to kind of hear your comments on what your experience has been, or if you have any story you'd like to share about how this, falls in place.
Well, actually, the thing that has changed my life the most is a story that is so weird and so far out. that I almost hesitate to share it with you, but it is very central to me. When I was 13, my kidneys failed. And at that time, in 1956, the doctors didn't really know how to fix that. They didn't have any of the technology that they have now. There was no coming back. You just either lived or died, and they just had to stand back and wait and see what your body did. And so for 2 weeks, my kidneys didn't do anything, and I died for about a couple of minutes. My heart wasn't beating, there was no pulse, and I left this reality and was immediately in another reality. And in this reality, I no longer had any pain, and I was so happy. I realized, that I was dead, quotations, but I knew that all my friends were waiting in this temple that was over the hill, and I just had to walk over to that temple. And so I started up the hill towards, if I went on the other side of the hill, I would see the temple. I could just see the dome over the hill. And I was walking towards that temple, and it was such an unusual, it was like walking from black and white into color in terms of how all the colors were suddenly moving and living and flowing, and they sort of sparkled in the air. Everything that made any noise, the wind in the trees and whatnot, it sort of sparkled in the air, and I could hear a very, very soft but beautiful music in the far, far distance. I don't know what that was, but it also sparkled. And then I heard kind of like a voiceover. And this voice spoke to me out of nowhere, and lots of sparkles, and said, "Well, Carla, I don't remember exactly, but this is the sense of it. We don't usually do this for people, but we're going to give you a choice. You chose far too much catalyst for one incarnation. And so your body has not been able to bear up under it. Now, here's what we'll offer. You can either go back into this incarnation with the body that you've got, knowing that it's fragile and you'll always have problems with it, and try to complete both parts of your mission. Or you can split the mission into two, and you can come back twice, one incarnation for that part and another incarnation for this part." And I thought back over my childhood and how difficult it had been, and how very difficult it had been in terms of dealing with my parents and trying to please them, and never really quite making it. There was always something wrong with everything I did. And so I tried and tried and tried, and I never quite made it. Very difficult. And of course, since I was bright, very bright, I was different, much different from most people. And I was a very religious little girl, and felt that I knew Jesus personally, that he had been part of my magic forest when I was a little kid. I would go into this place, and there would be Jesus, and I would hold his hand and look into his eyes. He would never say anything. I'd just look into his glowing golden eyes, and I would know what love was. And all I wanted to do was follow that love and be part of it and serve it and serve that man. My mother told me she never told me about Jesus. I told her. And so my belief in Jesus is very personal and has nothing to do with the Bible or anything like that. It has to do with my experiences as a little tyke. So anyway, um, those relationships that you're talking about, I never could succeed in forming any with anybody because everyone thought I was so different and so peculiar, and so I was just rejected. I was a loner. Not because I wanted to be, but because I did not succeed in making any friends. No matter how hard I tried. And I can remember asking one girl, "Why don't you like me?" And she just looked at me and she said, "I don't know." You know, it was very, there was no energy in between me and any other person to form a relationship with. So when I was 13, I was looking back over a very difficult childhood, and I thought, I don't want two more of those.
Sure, who will?
Let's go back in and give it the best shot I've got.
Yeah.
If the body is fragile, well, the body is fragile. So I said, I want to go back. And as soon as I thought that, of course, this was all mental.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as I thought that, bam, I was back in my body. My body started up again. And the first thing I can remember was looking up in my hospital bed and seeing people leaning over me, trying to help me, doctors and nurses. And it took me about 2 months to recover at all, and then it took another 3 months at home before I could go back to school. But I survived. Mm-hmm. And I knew from that moment my life had changed completely because I knew I had a job to do. And I knew that it had something to do with love. I didn't know what, but my whole life had been about love, so it had to be about love. So I just wanted to serve so much, and every day of my life it was desiring to serve and worshiping, being so glad I was in this creation. I was so joyful to be here. I mean, I went from being a sad little girl to being a very happy little girl. And I grew up really fast, and my life kept changing for the better, and I started making relationships one after the other. And now I have relationships that started way back in high school that I still keep up with. Mm-hmm. But it took that experience elsewhere for me to gain the confidence in myself and the knowledge of myself. Okay, this is where you are. You know, you are here, little arrow. Mm-hmm. And whatever happens, you're on the job. All you need to know is that you're on the job, and it will all come. Mm-hmm. It will all just come. And I was sure of that for some reason. And it has, you know, in its own way come for the last many, many years. So that is the central story of my unusual life. Now I can talk about other relationships that have changed my life. But this one was the central one. So we can start from here and then go outwards.
So it sounds as though, as a result of this very life-changing experience, you took a completely different outlook, not just about yourself and how your life was, but how you were going to be and behave, so to speak, in this, you know, this lifetime. And,
right.
And that had some sort of contribution to how you were relating to others.
Well, I realized that every single person that my life touched was a gift to me.
Mm-hmm.
And so my job was to see if I could help.
And let me stop you right there, because I think that is, I mean, you couldn't have hit the nail on the head any more accurately. And that's the part that I see as well. But it's something rather difficult for most people to see. How is it that I can see that everyone in my life is that vital to me and it's a gift when I don't like you because you make me do homework if I'm a teacher.
Right.
Or I don't like you because you make me angry. Obviously, nobody can make you angry. It's a choice, but that's how the mind constructs it. You know, and how is it that we can shift from point A to point B if you're just if you're wearing this veil of preconceived notion that anger happens from out there and I'm not responsible. They cause it on to me. So you see where I'm saying it's hard to see on a day-to-day basis what catalyst even is.
Yes.
If we can't stop for a minute and say, wait a minute, where is this anger really coming from? Did they cause it?
Right. And they did. And of course they didn't. It's like everybody in the universe is a mirror to us. Now, if we are all one, if we're truly one being, and we're all constructed of one love, then everybody else is much like us. And they are reflecting ourselves to us. Why did we get angry at that person and not somebody else? What was it about? Now, it might be road rage. It might be the person cut me off in traffic and it's perfectly obvious why it happened. That doesn't take too much thought.
No.
But when you hit somebody that just irritates you, and just every time you're with that person irritates you, then you know, either you let that be or you realize, oh, this person is showing me some part of myself that I don't want to look at.
Right.
I haven't worked on this yet. Let's take a good look at it and see what it's all about.
Right.
And then that person becomes a gift. A soul that has given you that gift of knowledge about yourself. So you work on that. Okay, why did she irritate me? Until you begin to understand. Oh, I remember back when I was a kid, there was a situation in which there was a lot of pain and I buried it, and I'm going to have to dig that pain up. I'm going to have to look at it again, and I'm going to have to forgive it. I'm going to have to move from judgment to forgiveness. And so that's what that person is helping me do, is delineating and making clear to me the path in that particular way of how I'm going to get from judgment to forgiveness of myself, not just the other person, but mostly myself.
Right.
So I think that if you start out with the assumption that people either irritate you or they don't, then they're just pawns in the game. They don't mean a lot. But if you start out with the realization that all these people are souls, and that's the highest you can possibly be in the great democracy of eternity, is a soul. We are human beings. You know, we can create our choices and move on. This is how we move on. We move on because we get to know ourselves more and more, and we forgive ourselves more and more. And that makes it possible for us to be able to see other people from a standpoint of compassion and forgiveness, and not get caught up in irritability or anger or whatever. But it takes work on our part before we get to the point where we can relax and let all that go and just be ourselves and be forgiven, and then other people are forgiven too. Everybody's forgiven. Everybody in.
Absolutely. And what I find is that, particularly in my younger days, I mean, it's not so much now, but in my younger days, it was more, I was more resistant. I was more reluctant to doing any kind of work. There's always this excuse, oh, well, I can do that tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
That just takes too much thinking. And so, like myself, there's many out there who keep putting it off. Procrastination obviously is our Achilles heel. And that was one thing that I have as a great concern now in this stage in my life, where I want to help others to kind of get on with it. Don't wait till tomorrow, because as I remember, get a grip. As I remember in your one of your other YouTubes, you talk about how Rod defines that little spot of indifference where the great majority of it are not either falling into the 51% category, nor either that 5 of the 95% for negative polarity. We're just vacillating in the middle. And so my thinking is, okay, I'm scratching my head. How can we open the door? How can we make this? How can we spark an interest for this kind of work? And so that was why I had this, desire to kind of orient the conversation in that direction. So how in the past have you made it, or have you found anything in the past that has made you say, okay, I'm going to hold my feet to the fire, darn it, and I'm going to do it? Is there anything that has helped you or aided you that says, okay, it's now or never?
Well, dreams have helped me. For instance, when I had a starter marriage, it went from when I was 25 to when I was 29, and almost 29. And you'd think that I would have had more feelings against this fellow, but he had done the best he could. He was just a jerk, and he couldn't really help not growing up yet, and he didn't grow up until he grew up, and he couldn't finish school. He wouldn't work. I supported him the 4 years that we were married, and even though as soon as we were divorced, he went and got a job making 3 times what I had been making, and just went on upwards from there to being a very wealthy fellow. A self-made man, and he's probably a millionaire by now. And I really have lost touch with him. But actually, what happened was, of course, I cried and I felt a lot of mourning when we broke up. And then I had this dream, and in the dream, I saw him. I was running towards this little cabin that was sort of like a honky-tonk out in the wilderness, the way you sometimes see people. If you've ever wandered in eastern Kentucky, sometimes there's the little roadhouse by a little tiny road, and there's a bar in it, but it's just sort of a meeting place. People go there to visit and catch up and so forth. And I was running towards this little cabin that was this store, bar, whatever. And I saw him come out on the front porch of this cabin, and he had one of those detonators in his hand. You plunge the plunger down. Then
TNT or DT, what is it, like the
TNT? Yeah,
coyote blowing up.
Right, Wile E. Coyote. Okay, well, you've had it. So anyway, he comes out on the porch and he gets this, mad look in his eye, and he goes like this. And when he plunges it down, everything in the cabin explodes into flowers.
Aww.
All the bar seats, along the bar, along the floor, everything is flowers. The ceiling, the walls, it's absolutely beautiful. All different colors of flowers. And I woke up, what? And then I sat and I thought about it, and I thought, I am free for the first time in 4 years, and my life can bloom again. And I think, I worked on it for a while before I got to that conclusion, but again, it was a matter of shifting my attitude and opening my heart so that I wasn't so self-involved and all, like this, and I opened up to life, and suddenly good things began to happen to me.
And I think it's so true. And obviously, I'm not lucky enough to remember many of my dreams, so I've had to work a little harder at it in the more objective style. And so let me share with you real quick what I've done that might be helpful for those out there who aren't lucky enough to remember their dreams like you.
Okay.
One thing, and this is not so much a story as much as it is just a little tool, a little technique. One thing that I found that was very helpful to me was to become aware of my self-language, deprecating language and so forth. But for instance, like you were saying, we lock ourselves into that negative energy, and it's much difficult to create a shift when you're contracting. Like you say, negative polarity is contractive, positive polarity, you open up, you're ready to receive. So what I started doing was become aware of inner dialogue, like, I have to. If you think in terms of I have to, what's I have to? I have to is basically you're giving up the first distortion of free will. Free will. I mean, your have to is almost a demand upon yourself, and your mind constructed as if it's an outside source saying I have to do laundry. No, I don't have to do laundry. I can play hooky all day long if I want to, but my children won't have clean clothes. So what I found is that, and I've made a little thing here, if I go from I have to I want to, then you've created an automatic shift. And so that's sort of what I have found to be very helpful, just a little things like that I can catch myself in the moment and say, no, wait a minute. Where am I going with this? How am I treating myself in that moment when I have to, or else, because our mind makes up all these things about.
Well, it really does.
Yeah.
I can remember one time I was doing the dishes, and I don't know, it was a sunny day outside. There was a window over the sink, and I was looking out the window, and my heart was opening just because it was a pretty day. And all of a sudden, I heard the dish that I was washing, and the dish was saying, "You're really doing me. This is great. I'm really going to get so clean. This is so great." And the dish was happy. Sounds crazy.
And you probably were happy for having a clean kitchen.
Well, yeah, I was. And I don't know. I think that Ra talks about everything being an honor duty or a duty honor. This is slash in there. Honor / duty or duty / honor. So if you look at everything as a duty / honor, the honor kind of gets buried, and everything's a duty. I ought to do, I should do, I must do.
Yeah.
And then you start thinking, wait a minute, isn't it my honor to do this? Isn't this great that I have these people to help, and these people in my life that I would never have the chance to do all these things that I get to do? I mean, when you're in a family, yes, it's tough to do the chores, but on the other hand, how great to do those chores and get everything ready for your babies, or that good man that is trying so hard to build a life with you. And just, when you relate to things with the honor / duty, oh, what an honor it is, really, then that really kind of feels good.
Yeah.
And it makes everything kind of shine. And even if you look at a messy room and it needs to be cleaned up, but there are things that need to be done. You need to collect the laundry, you need to collect the dishes, you need to run the vacuum, you need to run the duster, there are things you need to do in order to bring it back up to your own standards. And you do have standards. You like to live in a clean place. You like to have clean clothes and so forth. So when you are going for, isn't this an honor to do this? Isn't this great? Then you sort of have the energy to attack it with verve and then, I don't know, put a good piece of music on that expresses your viewpoint,
Right.
And sort of clean up the house while you're dancing,
Well, you're certainly shifting the paradigm of your energy level to
Yeah.
be more in keeping with a sense, like you say, a sense of honor and duty and privilege, and doing it. I like to look at it as sort of an underlying reason. Well, why is it that I'm doing it? Well, I'm doing it because I love my family and I want them to have a nice place to live in, or clean clothes, or hot food on the table, or whatever it is. If I'm providing, I'm working hard. Well, I don't like working overtime or late, and I have no life. Well, that's the negative side. But I'm doing it because I want to provide. So it's just about shifting the paradigm of the energy, and the energy in it of itself becomes the catalyst for why am I doing this to begin with. So
And then there's what you're going to do with the people at work. I remember one job that I had where it was my first professional job. I was very proud to have gotten it. I was very young to be a librarian. I was 21. And I absolutely couldn't stand this woman. She was a holdover from the early 20th century, and she had started the job 2 years before I was born. And I was her. She never had an assistant in all the 20-some years of her um, having this library. It was a Speed School library at the University of Louisville, engineering library. And she'd never had an assistant. She didn't know how to deal with an assistant. And she was afraid of men, and all we had in those days for engineering students was men. All we had for professors was men. She was afraid of men. She was in the wrong job. So she would hide out in her office, and I would do the visiting of all, I would relate with everybody for her. And I was glad to do that. But what drove you crazy was, like, she decided that, okay, an assistant should always answer the phone. Well, if I was a football field away reading shelves on a ladder and the phone rang in her office and I had to get over there to answer the phone, she'd sit there with the phone ringing and in her ear, and she wouldn't answer it because that was my job. That kind of thing. So I just thought, well, what am I going to do? So I thought, well, I am going to pretend that I love her. I am going to just shower her with the best love that I have. And I did. I thought of I called her Chief. It was a cute nickname from a TV show that was on then, 99, always called The Spy Chief. And so I called her Chief, and she loved it. And I just treated her well. No matter what she did to me, I would smile and love her. And within a couple of weeks, I began to notice that things were changing in the library. And she started to love me back.
what a surprise.
And everything, let's see,
You're fine.
11 run, okay. Everything changed in that library. And even though my job didn't change and her craziness didn't change, I was able to tolerate it, no problem whatsoever, because I loved her, and because of the fact that I loved her, I was able more and more to understand why she was so the way she was. She had no friends herself. She didn't know how to make a friend. She was totally useless at any social skills. And so my heart began to open towards her. I began to feel sorry for her, and realize what a tough life she'd had. Just fighting her way and doing a good job in this library, being afraid of everybody she came in contact with all the time.
Gary said something on your in your radio show yesterday that struck me as something relevant to what you're saying. And if I'm quoting him correctly, he said, "Love is a function of awareness." And I so agree with that, because in essence it's what you said. You made a choice to love her no matter what. And when you made that choice, you started directing the energy. I mean, it's almost like the law of attraction. Whatever energy, wherever focus goes, energy flows, or something backwards. Anyway, needless to say, you're going to augment whatever direction of energy you're putting into it. I think that it's all a matter of becoming aware. And so, going back to revisit the quote where he says, "We grasp from this question that you realize that the primary mechanism for catalytic experience in the third density is other self."
That's right.
Amen to that. And
so every person that comes into your life, everybody that comes into your life is potentially a total gift. And it's up to you to make it so. And sometimes, no matter how much you try, you just can't make a connection with that person. But if you don't have anything stopping you, if you don't have any voice in your head saying, "I'm not doing this, I'm not worthy, I'm no good, I know I could do this better, but I don't know how," all the inner voices that eat up all your energy, just suck away all your energy. If you've been able to quiet those voices so that your attention is focused outward on those other people, then you're going to be picking up everybody's got vibrations. So if you're really in the moment and really, like, it's very easy with you. I mean, you and I made a complete connection the first time that we met. And it's done nothing but get deeper and better and stronger since then.
Yeah.
With some people, it's just not as easy. And they don't get you, and you don't get them. But the first thing that they can say is that there's no harm in her. They can't find any harm. They can't find really anything to criticize. That there's just no energy there. So if you can work until you make a connection with that energy, a genuine one, it's not low energy, but so that you're genuinely in contact with that person on that person's level, then you've done the best you can, and you're open to whatever might happen. How can I help? I think that's really the question that is uppermost in my mind when I meet someone is, how can I help? How can I serve? And sometimes it's just being there that'll help that person. That the quality of your beingness. That I think you bring a lot of people, you wake a lot of people up so that they want to get this for themselves because they see what you've got. And they think to themselves, how does she do that?
Mm-hmm.
I want that. And so I think, you know, a lot of people are just dragging in on your coattails and, you know, wanting to be like you or wanting to have your joy, wanting to have that quality of happiness that is escaping them completely. And then they're around you and they feel good. They feel happy. They feel, you know, more and more relaxed the longer that they're around a group of people that's around this. Usually there's a central person that is creating a good energy flow between everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And so you find yourself wanting to go back and be part of that crowd. And more and more you are able to take away that open heart because you know it's reliable, it's always there.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's something that, okay, at first you can't do it at all. You leave that person, the connection is cut, just like the end of a telephone call. That's it, gone. And then after spending many times with that person or in that person's flow, when you leave, there's a lingering energy that stays with you.
Mm-hmm.
And you can keep your heart open a lot easier because you're remembering how it was when you were with those folks.
And speaking of lingering energy, wouldn't you say, would it be fair to say that once you've opened up your heart to, you know, put it in context of raw material, to the green ray energy, is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't you say that it's just that energy is lingering into the space? I mean,
Yeah, I mean, it fills the space.
Yeah.
And I think really that's what we're here to do, is to find that within ourselves
To activate it
and to hold that space.
Mm-hmm.
Because our job is basically to lighten the consciousness of planet Earth. And how do you do that? Well, you hold that higher energy and make it possible for the things to flow in and out of this realm from higher realms. A good smile that opens the heart also opens you to the realms of spirit that are within and are just waiting for you to let go and feel good and just let it all happen and not have shoulds and not have ought tos and just, oh, okay, what does this day hold for me? And get up and let's hit it again, you know, and have that attitude towards each day. And I think really it's our positive responsibility to choose how we're going to attack the day. We can choose to have a good day or a lousy day. And if something happens to upset us, we can choose to hold on to that, or we can choose to get back to where our heart's open and we're having a good day.
You just used a word that I like to break into two a lot. You just said positive responsibility, but the word responsibility is it starts with response. So how am I able to respond to something, or how am I going to respond with the ability to turn it into something else?
That's good.
And so it's and it's like Gary, I caught on to that yesterday, and I thought, hooray for him for bringing it out, that love is a function of awareness, because it's not until you fall into a sense of awareness through your own choices and responsibility that you open up to that energy of full potentiality and express love. And I thought, right on. So
Yeah, Gary has really got a lot of good things to say, and I can't encourage him enough.
they
Really,
both do. Austin does too.
yes,
And I'm
Austin does
so
too.
thrilled the fact that they're, young, and they're in this upcoming generation. And I hope to see them go out there and encourage those who are in
Yes,
their age group to come along and do, some of this hard work internally and out into the world. Because
yes,
it doesn't move anywhere until it moves in here first.
right.
So,
Well, I think we have pondered and pondered. How do you serve? How do you reach out? How can you reach more people than you're reaching now? Because the law of one is written in a very dense, difficult to read, episodic style. And there are lots of people, they're mostly technically oriented, technologically oriented. A lot of them are guys. Um, and they get it right off because Don was a physicist, and the questions he was asking are the questions of a scientist and a physicist, and they're following him right along, question by question. And other people don't really get everything, but they feel the energy of the material somehow, and they love it. And then there are the people that look at it and go, nothing. And, maybe something else is for them. But I tried writing 101 um, as a way for people that were having difficulty with the original material to ease into it. It's written in a very simple style for the regular person, and I had a guy that uh, taught English as a second language to read all of my stuff after I'd written it, to show me where I had mistakenly used words that are only used in college, and it's decolleged. It is that book is written so that the average person who maybe he hasn't even finished high school, but he can read this book. It's simple enough, and hopefully it catches the heart of what the raw group is trying to tell us. I talk first about the distortions, free will, love, light, polarity. And after I talk about polarity and try to show people how that works, and I use stuff that people have seen in high school, like how an engine works, how a starter on an engine works, and what makes it go, what makes it click on. And I was very careful. I think I got everything right to use examples like that, which are very low to the ground, um, straightforward, easy to understand. And okay, I get polarity. All right, now what are we talking about? Is how you use yourself to polarize, to do work. Okay, so then I very carefully sorted out. Okay, this is the first ray. I went through the chakras one at a time. The red, orange, yellow, the whole rainbow, Roy G. Biv of chakras that we have in our body that connect us with our energy body or our spiritual body. And it's what we're doing here. But until you realize, well, I'm not just a person trying to have a spiritual experience, I'm a spirit trying to have a physical experience.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm much more a spirit than I am a physical body. Yeah.
A vessel.
So I talked about how you can work with red ray, the basic ray, that is your connection to how you feel about sexuality and survival, how you feel about living on planet Earth. If you hate living on this Earth, then you're not going to be able to do the work to bring yourself into positive polarity, because you've blocked the energy that flows through your body so that it never gets to the heart, to open the heart. Mm-hmm. And then the second chakra is the orange ray, and it has to do with personal relationships, like relationships with yourself, relationships with somebody else, with a lover, a friend. And then you have in yellow ray, the yellow ray chakra has to do with your relationships that are contractual, your birth family, your marriage family, work, the team you root for, those things that have, even a team that you're rooting for, it has, those guys have a contract. They are, you can depend on them to show up for work because it's their work. It's not just fun.
So anymore. I guess this dependability would be the adjective, so to speak, that defines that particular chakra.
I guess.
Accountability,
but at any rate,
dependability.
It's those first three chakras that are below the heart chakra, mm-hmm. and that close up if you're unhappy. If you're unhappy in your marriage, closes up. Energy can't get into the heart. If you're unhappy with your lover, the energy closes up. It can't get through to the heart. And so those three lower chakras are basically constitute our outer work in this incarnation, because in order to do work, our heart has to be open, mm-hmm. so that we can use ourselves to do work in consciousness. Everything is within, we're looking for something out there. But in truth, our work lies within ourselves, to discipline our personality and to do work in consciousness in order to polarize more and more. How can I help? How can I help? How may I serve? How may I love you? It's not a duty, how may I serve? Yeah. It's like a joy. How may I serve you? Please let me serve you. And keeping your heart open and having that attitude is everything. That's going to help you do the work.
Can you tell me a little bit about the personality? I know that and I've not personally covered it because, like I said, I've read the book in sort of in a meandering way, but I know that in here and there I've seen the archetypes or something to the effect of archetypes. Can you briefly touch on that?
Okay. Well, in the fourth book, when Don had asked a lot about everything, he was searching for where to go. And he said, what can I do to talk about the magical personality, to talk about the disciplines of the personality? That really interests him. And of course it interested all of us. And he said, I want to learn more about that. How can I learn more about the disciplining of the personality? So Ross said, well, there are basically three ways that you can learn about the very deep part of your soul, body, mind, body, spirit, um, of your consciousness, the roots of consciousness, what Carl Jung would call the roots of consciousness. And he said you can use the stars and astrology, because that it's very set. You can study the each star and where it was when you were born and so forth, and that is very valid. Or you can study Western magic. You can study the glyph of the tree of life, and that's what the mystical Jewish religion is all about. The trying to think of the word, and I'm not getting it, but the tree of life glyph is that which describes who we are, and where each characteristic lies in the tree of life. Is it feminine? Is it masculine? Is it in the middle?
So what Carl Jung did, the animus and animus,
Right.
the
He was
animus
trying to get down
to
into the roots of
yeah.
consciousness. So then he said, well, or you could study the tarot, the court cards of the tarot. There are 22 of them. And you could try to study the 7 tarot cards for the body, the mind, and the spirit. And then there's one called the Fool that relates to all three. And so after a lot of talking, nobody was really felt that they had the ability to do astrology. We hadn't done astrology. None of us had gone far enough into the magical study that constitutes white Western ritual magic that we felt that we could do the Tree of Life. So we decided that we would try the tarot. We didn't know a thing about the tarot and the court cards, but it turned out that there was an Egyptian tarot, and so we actually went to the Library of Congress to find a suitable deck of the court cards, and we found those that we have used in the book. And so Ross sorted out those into 7 court cards for the mind, 7 for the body, and 7 for the spirit. And we studied those of the mind first, and that's as far as we got before Don died.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a wonderful journey that was well begun, and then it stopped through no fault of anybody's, but we couldn't go further. But it's fascinating to look at the implications of the various parts of the tarot and the implications that were left, like little trails of suggestion for those things that Rock didn't have a chance to get into, having to do with the body and the spirit, because he just did the mind. But there were comments and so forth. So it's a fascinating study. We're actually going to have this April. You can get on our site www.bringforth.org and find information on a gathering that we're going to have this April to discuss the archetypes of Ra. There's a fellow that's been studying them for years, and he's an excellent philosopher, and we're so honored to have him. And he's going to lead the discussion, but not take it over. I mean, it's going to be a regular discussion, but he's going to guide it, and he's going to share his own discoveries so far in his own studies of the tarot. So this April, I'm thinking it's from the 8th to the 11th, and it's going to be on a farm that one of the members of L&L Research has, and she offered to hold this gathering. So it's going to be a lot of home-cooked food from her garden. And
Yummy.
yeah.
Hopefully the snow will dissipate by then.
Oh,
You guys have
yeah.
had
By then it's going to be beautiful weather,
Yeah.
and we'll have bonfires at night and wonderful discussions during the day. So that's one of our two gatherings. The other gathering that we're going to have, by the way, is a gathering having to do with healing work. What is it to balance yourself, and how do you go about doing that, and where are you out of balance? And this woman is a medical intuitive, and she is able to work with you and help you discover your own personal places where you might want to become more in balance. And she's going to be teaching a weekend late in March.
I would love to come to that.
And that's going to be held right here in Louisville at
what is her name? What is this woman's
Beatrice Gonzalez.
I used to follow the work of Carolyn Meese, who is also a medical intuitive.
Yes.
And she's very good.
I'm aware of her work, and it's wonderful, but this woman's work is wonderful too. She's had 30 years of her own work as a medical intuitive, and then she read the raw material and she just flipped because it was so much in keeping with her own studies. And she was able to incorporate the law of one, and especially the balancing exercise, into her own work. And so she teaches that, the combination of the two. And she does a lot of work with each person, one-on-one, as well as teaching in a group. So I think it's going to be wonderful. And yes, please do sign up. It's not full yet. Just look on www.bringforth.org. If you haven't found that site yet, it's BRING4TH.
I have found it. I read quite often. Is that the one where Jim does your daily? Yeah, where he tells you had your
blog
daily
on it.
What you did each day. Yeah, I keep up with that.
And Fox every day gives a quote from our material on the home.
As in Fox
Hut.
Oh.
Her name is Fox Hut.
Okay.
You wouldn't have heard of her. She's a weaver, but she's not famous. But at any rate, she loves the material, and so every day she puts a little quotation on the home page of Bring Forth to spark people's interest. And if you click on it, then you can read the whole session. And so it's a way, like you said, it starts a person meandering, wandering through the material, and I think that's the best way.
It is. Obviously, sometimes there's some repetition because you end up falling back onto something you've already read once before, and because there is no order, you're kind of, oh, wait a minute. It's kind of like,
we're working on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But needless to say, it's and also depending on how you put your search parameter, it could make it to where it jumps. But the nice thing about it is you could click on that number and take you to the original session where you see a sequential order of how the question was played out and what consecutive questions came after. So even though you're kind of missing some of the context over here, you can still kind of refer to it over there. So
You can. Yeah, I think the guys are working hard on sorting things out so that when people want to look at what there is on, say, free will or the open heart or whatever you're wanting to look for. How do I deal with suicide? So they're working on making things in a more orderly way so that searching is much easier. And I know that they're close to doing that. Let's see, you wanted to keep this within an hour and a half, and we only have 15 more minutes. You've never told me your story yet.
Well, I have so many. Which one would you like? But I did tell you one. I don't know if you got to read the little email that I sent you.
Oh, I did.
And
Thank you very much for that.
That was an incredible story because, here I was, all, like you say, all pumped up, all puffed up. Gather my courage, made a beautiful little bouquet of flowers to take to Brene Brown. Knocked on her door, and I'm smiling. I'm kind of excited to hopefully get to meet her. This is a woman. I don't know if you saw her video on YouTube.
Haven't had a chance yet.
But this is a woman that to me screams, I'm a wanderer, and I'm here to just, brighten up the world. And she does it with such fun. I mean, she's fun. She starts singing on stage, and she's just really fun to watch. And the body of her work has been so incredible. It has to do with shame and vulnerability, and how vulnerability is the birthplace of innovation and creativity. So you can't have even, in offices where everybody's all stuffed up, well, we got to keep order and we got to be just so, and we got to be kind of manly. We can't show emotions. Well, you're stifling creativity because vulnerability, takes you there. Anyway, outside of, that's just a summation of her work, and it's really fantastic. So I'm knocking at her door, and it's a Saturday. She answers the door. I'm handing her flowers, and she looks out. I guess she was looking for like a delivery vehicle. And she says to me, where do these flowers come from? And in that moment, talk about catalytic, it's like, pow, it just hit me. I felt literally like I was falling into Alice in Wonderland's rabbit hole. Yeah. And there was no stopping. So I kind of bowed my head down and said, and I put my hand in, I just remember, put my hand on my chest and I said, those are from me as a gratitude for your work. But I don't think she quite got it that I had made the flowers. But in my head, in the moment, was just all this BS about
that you were trying to bring yourself down.
And like
I'm not good enough.
Because
I should just go home.
I shouldn't be knocking at a stranger's door uninvited. What lack of consideration. So you name it. And so nothing that she did to connect with me and ask me, where are you from? I've never experienced such a sense of hopelessness, but it was more than that.
Seems like you've just been turned off.
Completely. I even got dizzy. I was so disoriented. And I couldn't bring myself back to have cohesive language or anything. I felt like a total. So, needless to say, I don't even know what came out of my mouth, but she was very, very gracious, and she stood there holding her flowers, and it was just her presence that got me through it. And I finally started walking away, and I said, whenever, and I had written a letter to her, which kind of explained a little bit why I was coming to her door. And she said, whenever you have an opportunity, I would love to connect with you. I turned my back. I went to my car and just started bawling. I said, I can't believe that happened to me. Carla, I didn't sleep for 4 days.
Oh.
Just beating myself up. Why?
Oh my goodness.
Beating myself up. And finally, after, I did my work, I did my inner work, and I did what I call the clarity process, which is to take each piece of that garbage that comes out, kind of try and reconstruct what was it that subconsciously I was telling myself, and trying to say, well, is it true that I'm really inadequate? No, and kind of put all of that into perspective and truth and in false. Then I was able to say, well, voila. So who am I? Am I the flower lady, which was a trade that I carried very, very honestly and was carried with pride because I service others? Or am I the author? Or am I, who am I? And what I came to realize is that I'm neither. I'm not the flower lady. I'm not the philosopher. I'm neither. I'm the observer. I'm the observer of what's happening in that present moment. So it was really invigorating.
So you brought yourself into the now.
Into the now. It was really invigorating and so charismatic and so heartwarming to find myself right back into the spirit. That it's, I'm not the labels that I give myself or that others give me, but I am that which inhabits the space, of my Creator. And that was it. It was magical. But it takes doing the work.
It took you 4 days of
not
days
sleeping. Of agony.
Oh.
And it's like, why do we do this to ourselves? And and I've had many other moments like that where you come into the realization that if not for the gift of someone else standing in there, whether they're slapping you senseless or whether they're gifting you with, like I said, their love and light, where would I be as an individual? So, but anyway, how about if we conclude this? Do you have anything that you want to share with others and into a little tidbit of advice on how do this or don't do that? Or is there anything that you have there for others to start walking?
I think if I had one thing to say, it would be to keep a light heart. To keep going no matter what, and to keep lifting up from that feeling, that heavy feeling. Oh, this is hard. Well, it's not hard. We're making it hard for some reason. Why are we making it hard? And take it there where there's hope of opening your heart back up. And keep your hope open. Keep hope going. Keep faith going. If you have, I guess, if there's one thing I'd say is to have faith in yourself. Have faith in your discrimination, in your discernment, and even if you don't think you have anything to share, you do have faith in that, and sort of probe around and find out what that might be. Where have you loved doing work? Where have you gone from the duty, oh, I have to go to work, to, oh my God, I get to go to work today, ha-cha. Where what have you loved doing? And try to find a way to learn more about that part of yourself that loves to work, because there's where your service is. It's not in something that you must do or have to do or should do. It's in doing the part that you really love. Now, I know if you're a single mom and you've got to work 2 jobs to pay the bills, and you come home and the kids are crying and there's no food on the table until you get it there, and it's really hard to keep the energy going. It's really hard to do that. But, pull back, pull up. If nothing else, just take a look at that little child and rediscover the joy of him or her, because we all love our babies. Mm-hmm. And rest in the love that we have for that sweet little being that is at the moment driving us crazy by banging on a pan or crying and whining the way kids do over nothing. And believe in yourself. Have faith in yourself. Don't ever let that go. And just keep on keeping on. Because it's going to happen for all of us in unusual and unexpected ways, but we need to be present enough to be aware of it. We don't want to miss it. And so...
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I said absolutely not. We don't want to miss it. I mean, why else did we come here to begin with?
Right.
If we're going to miss it.
So, try to stay aware enough, conscious enough of the moment so that the moment doesn't just pass us by. And the more we can do that, the more we can sink into the present moment and enjoy it for what it is, really dig it. Then I think the more we can use it, the more we can respond to it, the more we can witness it. All those things that we came here to do. We came here to love. And the funny thing is, we came here to be loved as well. And it's the hardest thing in the world to accept love from other people. You say, oh no, you never could take a compliment, for instance. Somebody will give you a compliment and you say, oh, well, thank you very much, but I don't think I'm, that good, really. No, don't do that. Just accept the compliment. Say thank you. Accept the love offerings of other people. Let people love you back. It's so important. And it's so hard to do. It's a lot easier to love than it is to be loved.
Absolutely. Carla, it's been an absolute pleasure to do this one more time with you, and I'm looking forward to writing a little story of it that we can share with those in Huffington Post. So I will keep you posted.
Okay.
And hugs and kisses to everyone.
Well, thank you very much, and hugs and kisses to you right back.
Okay. See you, honey. You take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.